The Lemonade Car Show is sponsored by OMVIC, Ontario's vehicle sales regulator. Welcome to the Lemonade Car Show. I'm your host, Lorraine Sommerfeld. I'm joined today by George Iny. He's the president of the APA, and John Wallischek. He's with AutoLinks in Vaughan. We are talking about used cars. Fun topic, because everyone that has a car owns a used car. John?
Yes, the second they leave, they become used.
They're used, exactly. What's been happening? There's been a lot of turmoil in the industry when we're seeing some places shut down, like GM up here. There's a lot of impact. How does that impact used car values and prices?
Well, as of right now, it's a little bit early to tell because they're not leaving until the end of this year. So there's going to be a trickle-down effect. But there's a lot of people that they're looking at the 2,800 people, the 25 on the line and the 300 in the offices. But there's so many other people that supply parts to these locations that are going to be affected. They could be in Streetsville, they could be in Brampton, they make pedals, they make all kinds of components for General Motors, and that's, now you're talking into the thousands and thousands of people. Right. So that hasn't trickled down as, they're worrying right now, but we haven't heard anything of it yet. I just know that's the case, and George would agree with me, I think.
Yeah, I think from a consumer standpoint, the big issue right now with used cars is our low dollar. So the Americans are vacuuming late model, nice vehicles that people might want to, would have been on the used car market here. So pickups, big SUVs.
So it makes them more scarce, which means
I think so. Prices, in fact, the wholesale price on some pickups, so what a dealer would give you, was higher than what you could get retail for a good 6-7 months of the year last year. Or GM, or I think even, was it the Chryslers as well? General Motors for sure. You could drive the truck almost for free for a year, and the dealer would take it back and refinance or release you another vehicle.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Do you think this is going to change? When the Lemonade Car Guide comes out every year, it's like fun reading, and I'm sure you're working hard on the next edition for later in this year. Are we going to see any impacts from the end of some models, or is there going to be trickle back as opposed to trickle down?
For sure, when a car goes off the market, there's a few exceptions, like the FJ Cruiser, which has now, Toyota couldn't sell them at the end brand new, but now they've become like a cult vehicle. But most vehicles, when they're orphaned, their value goes down, especially regular sedans, like not a collectible vehicle that was perceived as limited. So something like definitely a Malibu, for example. I suspect that a year or two from now, the resale already isn't strong. When the model is dropped, you wait a couple of years and the resale will go down more.
Yeah, and it's a shame. You get, like you said, the FJ Cruiser, the Ranger was like that. It was a hard sell at the end, and now it's become a bit of a cult pickup because it's small, and they're coming back again.
But even the new small pickups are big.
Everything seems, and there's going to be another sub-model coming in to fit in the void from the smaller version that they all do that.
Because anyone that I know that had a Ranger is hanging on to them like this.
Yes.
Because it was a right-sized vehicle for so many applications, and then now they bring out their small ones.
Yeah.
They're what the F-150s used to be.
Look at the Colorado when it started. It was pint-sized, and now it's grown up.
They're pretty robust.
The other thing about the Ranger, the old one, was it was inexpensive. If you didn't get too many features on it, and Ford has forgotten about how to build an inexpensive vehicle. Everything they're doing now is more complex.
Well, doesn't everyone want an $85,000 pickup truck?
George?
There's a very good market out there for something new that would be under 30 maybe, and definitely for something used. Wouldn't you say there's what do people want to spend buying a used compact or even a larger pickup?
On a pickup right now, we just sold a 2013 for $23,000 still.
Right.
So it's
people still between 20 and 30,000 if they could get something they liked, not brand new. No. I think they would be very happy. They'd want a crew cab.
Yeah, the big thing is now a full 4-door, because even the little baby door ones don't sell very well. It's got to be a crew.
And all-wheel drive or 4-wheel drive.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But those 4-door, like, I understand, except nothing fits in the bed. I was speaking in the green room. I had one recently, and even a love seat wouldn't go in the back. Like who needs these?
A lot of contractors that don't put stuff much in the back, or owners of businesses really want the 4-door pickup truck that they could put another couple in the back.
Or people who commute, Lorraine.
Yeah, or commute,
So once every 2 years or 3 years, they've got to bring a load home from Home Depot. and I guess they pay for delivery.
Yeah.
Because the whole reason for buying the truck, actually, the bed isn't long enough for whatever they pay.
There's a lot of vehicles whistling down the highway
Yeah.
with one person in
that's
them.
right.
Yeah, we're doing that. Where are we going to see the used car market trends going? Do you think there's implications from the manufacturers themselves as we're moving towards different kinds of, towards electrics and hybrids still? And I do want to ask you about hybrid used cars probably in the next segment, because I think we need some more time for that. There's political implications with tariffs and stuff on new vehicles. Are we going to see any of that impacting the used car market?
Well, I think for me, the big factor is what happens to our dollar. Because as long as the Americans are buying a couple of 100,000 vehicles, vacuuming them out of our market, I think the prices will stay pretty good. Otherwise, you may end up with an oversupply. It certainly might be better for the dealers, I guess, because you're having trouble sometimes getting vehicles.
Because they don't make used cars, you can only buy what's out there. But it's like George said, the dollar matters, and the price of fuel. Those two things are always a tipping point. Right now, fuel is very inexpensive. It's cheap. Yeah, fuel's cheap.
And so, what are you seeing people coming in?
They'll buy anything. Big, small, medium, tall. They don't really care because they see about $1 a liter.
We'll be right back after this message with more from Lemonade Car Show. The Lemonade Car Show is sponsored by OMVIC, Ontario's vehicle sales regulator. The Lemonade Car Show is sponsored by OMVIC, Ontario's vehicle sales regulator. Welcome back to the Lemonade Car Show, brought to you by OMVIC and Crown. I'm joined by John Wallischek from Auto Links in Vaughan, and
Thanks,
Chris
Lorraine.
Muir is joining us because we're going to get into some nuts and bolts. See what I did there? In the first segment, I said I wanted to talk about hybrids. In the used market, this has become a new thing, even though the hybrids have been out for years.
For a while,
yeah. People always say, oh, buy a used hybrid because they're way cheaper than new because nobody kind of wants to get near them. Is that still true?
We were touching on this earlier, but it depends on the price of fuel. Gas is very inexpensive right now, and I've been selling hybrids since, well, over 10 years now. Used ones, pre-owned ones. What I find too, if the price of fuel is expensive, they seem to creep up a little bit and people are looking for them. If the price of fuel, like it is now, is low, then there's not a big sense of urgency. But a lot of people are getting used to that. They're very reliable. They're not something to fear. They're not a bad thing. They're not. I still get the same questions about the battery in them. What happens if the battery goes?
Oh, the $8,000 battery that needs to be replaced in 3 years? I don't even know where that myth came from because that was never true.
I've never seen one fail. And I even tell them, let's say the battery does go for some crazy reason. You still have a gas-powered car. You're not stuck on the side of the road. You've got your little generators turning when you're slowing down, but it won't leave you stuck.
I wish the truth got as much traction as the BS. Because that seems to be what happens.
That's a shame. There's wives' tales, and Chris knows what it's like. He's probably heard it from customers saying, "Don't do this, don't do." I heard this, but nobody has a name attached to it. It's just I heard it somewhere.
I heard or I read.
What are the wives? You know, like. I mean, I'm not a very good one, but still, it's that's just crazy.
Okay. I mean, I worked for Nissan for a long period of time, right through when the first generation of the Leaf came out. As far as the battery pack problems that we had inside of our Altima hybrids, there was really none. I think we replaced one battery pack over my time with Nissan, and it was for just some random code, something was shorted out. Didn't leave the car stranded on the side of the road or anything else like that, and the battery pack was warranted like forever. Not really forever, but a good long time, right? 10 years or 200,000 kilometers or something along those lines. So if you look into the hybrid technology, there is a lot of support from the manufacturer behind it that goes over and above regular powertrain warranty for most manufacturers as well.
So would you say with the evaporation of the government supports, the subsidies have been wiped out now. If people are still interested, it's really a good idea to be looking at used ones because you're going to be erasing the need for that credit, and the prices are good.
It's pennies on the dollar is what you're paying extra, if you want to call it that, but they're so close now, it's not even really a conversation. In a good way.
I'm going to ask both of you this. the best way to be shopping for a used car? You might want to start out by telling me the wrong thing to do. I know you've got lots of don'ts.
Yeah. So number one don't is don't buy it on an impulse. Think about what you're buying, research it thoroughly, and have somebody look at it before you sign on the dotted line, especially if you're doing a private transaction or with a shady lot, something that maybe is in behind a building, that's behind a building in a back alley.
Or how about just don't go there?
Or just don't go. Well, I mean, sometimes they've got the car, and sometimes they're reputable. They're just starting out something like that. So you want to take that vehicle to a reputable shop and have it properly inspected. And the moment somebody goes, no, you can't have a look at it with a certified mechanic, you just stop. The car's not worth it.
Yeah, go for a walk and don't come back. And a big thing buying a car is sit down, think about it, and always buy a car for about 90% of its use. Mm-hmm. If you bought a car for a whatever, maybe or kind of, we'd all be driving the big, huge monster vehicles.
And we are. You just
well, yeah, but that's that 90% rule. The other 10%, you'll always figure it out. You'll either rent it. Mm-hmm. You've got I've got families coming in to visit from Europe in the summer. We'll rent a van for a couple weeks. Next question.
But we can never convince people of that. George will say the same thing. We can't convince people to buy what they need most of the time. And they get in a showroom and they get all goofy.
Or the other one I've heard too is they buy not enough vehicle. I've seen that more than you'd believe. They don't look down, they're going to have more than one child. Yeah. They don't realize that, that they might move out to the country and might need an all-wheel drive. So I know we don't have a crystal ball, we don't possess one, but it's a good idea to try and sit down and think about it, project a little bit down the road.
I tell people, especially if their kids are 10, 11, 12, the kids could be learning to drive on that car.
Yeah.
So
and they're getting bigger too.
Yeah. Yeah, they're getting big. So Hey, we're going to go to the phones. We have a call for you, gentlemen.
My question is regarding to the Chevy Volt, half electric and gas, and what do you guys think about this technology? If you can please give me some information, would be appreciated. Thank you. Volt, which GM just continued up here, unfortunately.
Yes.
But great car, I think.
Fantastic car. It's actually an electric vehicle with a range-extending gas generator. So it's primarily an electric vehicle, and the gas engine isn't actually hooked up to the powertrain, just kind of as an aside. But as far as a reliable, decent little car, fantastic. If you're looking to cut back on your fuel bills and you drive around town, you may not have that gas engine come on for weeks. It's
John, do you see a lot of them?
My friend's got one.
Yeah?
He's on his second one.
So he likes it.
On his second gen. Loves it. He's out in Acton, so he's up north. I've been there. I lived there for a while. Loves it in the wintertime. Loves it in the summertime. Drives amazingly in the wintertime because it's bottom heavy. And with a good set of tires, it really feels like he's driving an SUV.
Yeah.
It's very capable, and he bought a second one, so either he doesn't know what he's doing, or he's got it figured out that it's a good vehicle. And like Chris said, too, I've never heard anything negative about it. They put a lot of R&D into it.
Yeah,
so,
certainly.
A lot.
So GM, you messed up discontinuing that one. We'll be back with more Lemonade Car Show. The Lemonade Car Show is sponsored by OMVIC, Ontario's vehicle sales regulator. The Lemonade Car Show is sponsored by OMVIC, Ontario's vehicle sales regulator. Welcome back to the Lemonade Car Show, brought to you by OMVIC and Crown. I'm here with John Wallischek and George Iny, president of the APA. We're talking about used cars still. George, you said in the break there's the wrong thing people do right out of the gate. So why don't we start there at the wrong end?
So your first mistake buying a car starts before you even leave the house. People read consumer advice and they think, I don't want to pay too much for that car. Sharpen your pencil. Don't pay more than you should. The best way to start on the wrong foot is to go for the cheapest version of what you're looking for. So if you do an internet sort and you get 25 models like yours within 50 kilometers of where you live, all of your focus is on the cheapest 4 or 5 ones. Those are not the ones you want. So we found when we shop, you're much better off with the vehicles that are toward the higher end. That's not the person that's getting all the calls. The price is more negotiable. probably a better chance that the tires and brakes aren't worn because it was looked after. And generally speaking, when you're buying a used car, the premium for something in good condition is a lot smaller than it would cost you to take an average car and pay retail rates to bring it up to that condition.
Do you concur?
In a nutshell, you get what you pay for.
Yeah.
So no, I think you actually get more than you pay for when the car is expensive in some cases, and perhaps a bit less when it's a cheap one.
Yeah, if you pay a little, you're getting less.
Yeah.
Because, like you'd mentioned, when you're buying something that's a little bit more expensive, usually has new tires, new brakes, better looking, original paint, no stories behind it, no accidents, nothing kind of crazy and wonky sort of thing. So getting what you pay for is pay a little bit more, but get a little bit more.
And when you're buying from a dealer, if you're looking for the cheaper one, sometimes what you don't do is read the rest of the ad and realize there's a $595 or $695 safety and e-test. So they've marked up the government inspection and put it on the side. When you're looking privately, it could be a curbsider if it's way below market. So you don't jump when the Car Guru's website tells you it's $4,900 below market. Yeah. Jump on it. Yeah, your answer should be maybe, maybe not.
Yeah.
Yes.
So again, too good to be true.
Could be.
Everybody has a story of something that somebody's relative was selling that's out in the garage for a certain number of years. Yeah. Occasionally it is true, but you can't start with that idea in mind of just going for the cheap car.
Okay. We have a call coming in that involves a lot of these kind of questions, so let's go to the phone.
Hi, I just want to ask a question. I am thinking of trading in my Kia Forte 2015 for a Sorento, and I just want to know, I'm leasing it at a finance amount of 6%, and finally, my husband has gotten discharged of, his bankruptcy. Is it to my advantage to trade it in if I still owe money on it?
Okay, this is a really good question because it pertains to a lot.
Do that.
Would you hold your bullets for a second? A lot of people find themselves in this situation. And the craziest thing is trying to get rid of a car you've only had for a year or two because you're going to take it on the chin. There's no way around it. Okay, now go ahead with the hysteria.
Don't do it. It's what people are getting. They get an invitation from the dealer to come in. It sounds like a wine and cheese. They're invited to look at the new models, and they don't realize they're actually being taken out of their current vehicle. They roll in all that money you haven't paid for on the one you're currently leasing into the new one and tell you, it's $30.
Oh, because they're buying it by the month again instead of buying the whole
$30 for
car.
96 months.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's even more than that. We've seen really bad cases where people have gotten underwater. Your husband is just coming out of a bankruptcy. You want to keep the household's finances in order.
In control.
Correct.
Yeah.
And you don't want to only be living on monthly payment. You have to look at the overall obligations. So sometimes people will come in with a lease and they'll say, well, it's the same number of dollars, but they only had a year or two left on their financing or 6 months left on their lease. Now they have a new obligation for 7 years. So it's the same number of dollars, but it's another 5 or 6 years of pay.
And to a point you made earlier, it sounds like she underbought. She bought a Forte, which is smaller, and now she's looking for something going into a CUV.
Correct.
With the Sorento.
Hey, but what she didn't tell us was, did she put any money down? She might have. We don't know. And we don't know what the term is on her. We don't know if it's how many months. It could very well be 60. It could be, it could be 72 or 84 months or beyond.
Well, if it's a lease, it's going to be maxed at 60.
Yeah.
Okay. You know what? There's more meat in this question, so we're going to come back after the break and talk it again. We'll be back after this break with more Lemonade Car Show. The Lemonade Car Show is sponsored by OMVIC, Ontario's vehicle sales regulator. The Lemonade Car Show is sponsored by OMVIC, Ontario's vehicle sales regulator. Welcome back to the Lemonade Car Show, brought to you by OMVIC and Crown. I'm your host, Lorraine Sommerfeld. I'm here with John Wallischek and George Iny. We were listening to a call where a woman had a 2015 Forte, looking at trading it over for a new Sorento. We had
turning it in early.
Turning it in early.
And owing money on it.
Yeah, and she said leasing, but we were sitting here having a conversation in the break that's not adding up. you guys want to address?
Yeah, we don't. I think we don't have enough information, because if she's paying 6%,
that sounds like a finance.
Yeah.
Generally,
situation.
Kia doesn't do good lease deals. Their vehicles have low resale value, so the manufacturer pushes financing because they're not on the hook at the end when you turn it in. And they have very good financing at 0%. If you're second tier, though, which is somewhat impaired, you could be at 6% on a Ford.
So we're questioning
whether it's a lease or a finance. Either way, though, the caller has said, I'm going to owe more money when I throw them the keys than the value of the car. And I want to move out of this thing into something much larger, a larger obligation. That's called negative equity financing. Basically, it's a very bad idea for consumers. If you want to learn more about it, by the way, in Ontario, the regulator has some good information on their website.
So that's Omvic, who sponsors the show. They have a great website in a lot of ways.
And John, you will sometimes get someone who owes money on a vehicle that wants to change.
And sometimes they're so far backwards that I won't even sell them a car. I get to the point where you're not doing them any favors. They get to the point where they're, you listen to them very carefully, why are they doing this? And generally speaking, sometimes, oh, I rushed it too much, I wasn't paying attention, I didn't have my map list before I went out to purchase something, and I did it on the fly. I've heard it all before. So sometimes you're not doing them a favor by selling them a car.
Will they buy it somewhere else?
Somebody will sell them a car.
In all good conscience, I'd rather not sell them a car, but some people won't care. They won't listen. I just put them deeper into debt. They're already backwards, and all you're doing is, they'll never dig out from that. It'll just keep
There's
going.
people that keep flipping, and they end up owing $80,000 on $50,000 worth of car. And this destroys the housing industry. It does.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's a shame, but someone's got to eventually put the brakes on and say, well, listen, there's got to be a plan B. Hopefully there might be.
Well, and buy a car and maintain it. You don't need a new car all the time.
No.
The cars are being made better than ever, so you don't need to get underwater, and don't buy more car than you can afford.
Yeah.
And be aware that if they tell you it's the same payment, that doesn't mean it's free.
Yeah.
Because they can stretch out your payment. What you need to consider is, what's the obligation? And what did I do with the whole amount I owe today versus when I get the new vehicle?
The money's got to come from somewhere. Everything's got a price tag.
Well, when you walk into a dealership, the first thing they say is, how much do you have a month to spend? Very first question every time. I swear. It's happened over and over again. And I tell people, don't answer that question. You tell them, I'm spending $25,000.
Now, if you're going for a new vehicle, I will tell you what to do. Take in an ad, a ridiculous ad, like from a Honda or a Hyundai, with the low advertised payment, and go to another brand. And then when they tell you, well, how much do you want to spend for a Toyota, you have the Hyundai ad at the ridiculous low payment. So they don't know what the cost is on that car. No. It's an answer that is in another ad, so they're also going to worry about where you might go after you leave their dealership. And that's the way to encourage what I would call a more constructive dialogue around that. Otherwise, it's very difficult. If you say $350, well, suddenly everything in the dealership is $350.
Yeah.
I'll stretch you out to 96 months. I'm going to ask you for $3,000 down, juggle a few other things around. I could get you $350, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's a good deal.
No, and that's, I mean, I like hearing that you wouldn't sell to somebody who is getting to get
Yeah,
themselves.
in all good, you can't look at that and say, you always try and put yourself on that side of the desk at least a few times. And it drives you bananas because you feel bad for them.
Well, and I think the thing is, if they're getting this far in, they're going to hit a problem. Like,
so eventually it's got to stop somewhere.
Yeah, like
can't go on infinitum.
Yeah, if your financial health is weak or you don't understand what's going on, you're going to get into deeper and deeper trouble.
No, and that last caller, she had her husband had a bankruptcy. Well, that's not encouraging.
Big sign that.
That's
well, you know what it is she's going to be carrying the family. To get really good borrowing, the caller is the person that's going to have to be the person signing. So she doesn't want to be too encumbered with additional debt at this point, at least until her husband can start borrowing again at something halfway decent. And that could be a little while.
Okay, we're going to go back to the phones again.
I have a 208 Torrent and needs a wheel bearing. Is it worth having it done? Also, many places, car paint is peeling. Thank you.
So I guess the quick answer is if the Torrent is still running, a wheel bearing repair, which might involve a complete assembly, it's not just the bearing itself, is probably well worth it. was a common repair item on those, on many GM products from that period. It's not that expensive. John, I'll let you talk about bodywork on older vehicles.
If the paint's just peeling on the car and it's not rotten or anything like that, she could probably just take it to a detail shop. They could maybe, you know, do a little bit of polishing, make it look pretty. If it's not rotten, then we're talking aesthetics. So wheel bearing, nice little detail, clean it up. For that kind of money, you can't buy a bicycle for that.
Generally speaking, more extensive bodywork like rust repairs and stuff, you wouldn't do on a 2008.
No, she just mentioned paint was peeling, so that's...
And that was a problem they had on some galvanized surfaces.
Fix the wheelbarrow or wheel bearing, and I know where'd that come from.
Awesome.
And you got a car that's still going to keep going and serve you well.
Now, for people who are people who are in Ontario, if you're in the southern Ontario, certainly we can help you find a shop to do the work if that's a problem.
Okay.
And if the vehicle is otherwise questionable, you should pay to have it looked at so that you get a sort of a report card on how it is before you decide to do like a lot of other work.
Put in for a fitness test.
Yeah.
A fitness test. That's all the time we have for the Lemonade Car Show. I'd like to thank our sponsors, Crown, Omvic, Hotspot Auto Parts, and Sound Insurance. And thanks to you, viewers.